Hello, everyone. My name is Daryl Guberman, recognized quality expert and Boeing shareholder. You must listen and listen carefully. What follows exposes decades of a long pattern of systematic failure, deception, and oversight abuse in the aerospace industry. On September 11th, Boeing announced layoffs of 20 to 30,000 employees. Yet within months, it imposed supplier requirements that demanded critical processes. In April 2002, Boeing issued a supplier bulletin mandating that special processes, including heat treat, welding, and non-destructive testing, be accredited through the NADCAP, or the National Aerospace Defense Contractors Accreditation Program, under the Performance Review Institute. This bulletin, reinforced again in July 2002, stated that suppliers must provide documentations and parts only, and if need be or need arises, Boeing would come and visit the supplier. This effectively gave Boeing the ability to avoid sending inspectors on site while still demanding certificates and compliance for parts and processes. This language, described as eliminating redundant inspection, created a loophole. Suppliers were responsible for certification, but Boeing would not independently verify on site, undermining real quality assurance. The July 2002 bulletin also mandated that suppliers meet AS 9100 international quality standards, ensuring certificates were ANAP accredited. On Boeing's supplier portal, it stated that suppliers meet AS 9100, accredited by ANAP, or international equivalent, which could be Iran, Pakistan, or China. Yes, this is no theory, this is a reality. Allowing auditors from these countries to enter U.S. facilities under the guise of equivalence and voluntary consensus standards. At the same time, Boeing sat on the ANAP Management System Accreditation Committee, which had the authority to grant, suspend, and withdraw certification. Despite lacking AS 9100 certification for over 22 years, ladies and gentlemen, they were making decisions on a board that gave the illusion to the suppliers that, oh yeah, Boeing must be accredited to AS 9100. It's called a fraud, what they perpetrated on you suppliers. Doesn't matter, by the way, if you're AS 9100, ISO 9001, or any other equivalent or derivative of the standards. If it's got an ANAB logo on it, if it's got one of their international, accreditation body logos on it, like UKAS or what have you, they perpetrated a fraud on you by Boeing being on the board for at a minimum of 10 years, between 2014 and 24. We have the data. We have pictures of those web pages. In October 2003, ANSI ANAP's Heads Up 22 required suppliers to be listed on the Online Aerospace Systems Accreditation System, OASIS, and pay database fees with the risk of you had to be on the database, you had to pay database fees, or risk non-compliance and your certificate getting taken away. This database was managed by the International Aerospace Quality Group, which held seats on ANSI ANAP board, and at the time, Boeing had wielded substantial control. In 2009, Boeing was granted FAA authority to self-certify aircraft systems, including technologies like the MCAS system, which later led to 346 deaths across Ethiopian and Indonesian airline in 2018 and 2019. I was there at the David Calhoun Inquisition, June 18, 2024, and that lady still is resonating in my head. She had a picture of her daughter, and it said, as she was saying, "You killed my daughter, you killed my family." And David Calhoun looked oblivious. All he thought about, I could see the bubble of his head. I got to go to the next golf outing. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, FAA inspectors. Boeing had been made Boeing/FAA inspectors by the FAA, granting some of the employees FAA inspector designation while they were getting paid by Boeing. What a conflict of interest that is. That is the same thing that goes on with suppliers to these aircraft companies. They'll go into Joe's machine shop and say, "Hey, Joe, we need one of your guys here in quality, or one of your guys off the floor, to become a designated inspector of Boeing, a Pratt & Whitney, a Lockheed," right? And Joe is paying that inspector to do Lockheed's work. Do you understand that? That's conflict of interest. Joe's employee is inspecting Lockheed's work, and then you have sometimes these these companies, you have three designation: Lockheed, Pratt and Whitney, and Boeing, let's say, and you have three titles on one guy's head, and that's wrong. A big conflict of interest because you have to have three inspectors because you're intermixing, different companies. You have crossover, which is not good. What you are about to hear, okay, ladies and gentlemen, well, with the inspectors, that's conflict of interest created by the FAA and Boeing paying the salary of those people. Subsequently, the DOJ investigations confirmed Boeing misled the FAA about MCAS, but they didn't need to tell the FAA anything because they were just made an agency of the FAA in 2009. Yet these failures were embedded in the system that Boeing helped create, and the DOJ sits on ANSI ANAB's board, and they are also a customer paying fees. What you are about to hear are statements that illuminate the depth of this crisis, exposing not only fraud and mismanagement, but systematic compromise that affected safety, trust, and accountability across the entire aerospace industry and other industries, medical, etc. All of those certificates accredited by ANAB or their international equivalents on the IF or ILAC, who in 2026 is going to change those. They want to try to stop the corruption, push it away. You can't dismiss 22 years of failure. You can't. So they're bringing GLOBAC, Global, GLOBAC, Global Accreditation of Cooperation. Paper compliance versus real quality. Boeing's quality system existed on paper, not in practice, and that deception cost industry billions of dollars. 203-556-1493. I thank you.